Hey y'all, it's your girl Toyia T, and today we have a great show. Of course, I had to pay homage to my stomping ground, Lincoln Heights. This show is going to be called The Forgotten Black Wall Street, Lincoln Heights. And I would be remiss if I didn't at least acknowledge the Better Business Bureau as our platinum sponsor this month to make sure that we're able to bring this type of content to you guys. So thanks again to the BBB here in Cincinnati. And then I want to do a shout out. Y'all see my t-shirt? This is from Heritage Hill. You know, well-behaved women never make history. So true, so true. So with that, we're going to get right into the show. We have some greats here to talk to us today about the history, then, now, and what's to come of Lincoln Heights. With us, we have Reverend Damon Lynch Jr., our pastor, our historian. What else can we say? We want to make sure that we pay homage to him and tell him congratulations on his retirement. We also have Carlton Collins here from the Heights movement. So with that, I'm going to let them do a quick introduction and then we'll jump into the show.
Hi, Toyia, and hi, Carlton, and God bless you. I'm glad to be here, and I appreciate the invite. And I'm looking forward to some good conversation and maybe some ideas thrown out that our dear city that we love so much can be a better city in the future, and recapture some of the golden things that we dealt with when we were children growing up in that wonderful place.
Absolutely. Well, we're so happy to have you here today, Reverend Lynch, and we're going to jump into this topic. But first, let's get an introduction from Carlton as well.
So Carlton Collins with the Heights movement, organization that is working to just change what does it look like on the ground in the community of Lincoln Heights, as well as, we very much so are adamant about celebrating the history. I do have to correct one thing. You said legends, like plural, and like I'm so far from catching up to Pastor Lynch. It's not, you know what I mean? He's my grandfather's contemporary, right? I'm still
You're still making your way up.
Right.
Well, we're speaking it into existence, Carlton. We're speaking it into existence. You're on your way.
Amen.
All right. Well, we'll jump right into the show because this subject has been on my mind for a little while in terms of, everybody knowing the history of Lincoln Heights. And I thought this was a really fitting time to have that conversation on the retirement of Pastor Lynch, and just recently seeing, some of our historians move on with Carl Westmoreland. We want to make sure that the memory stays alive of our community and that we tell this story so people can understand the rich history that lives in Lincoln Heights and that is going to continue to live as we continue to build on it. So the first question is, what should people know about the history of Lincoln Heights, and how does that history connect us to what's happening in the world today? And either one of you guys can tackle that question first. But I wanted it to be two-part because I think that the history of Lincoln Heights is very important, but we also need to overlap it with all of the things that are happening in our world that we haven't seen before. And so who wants to tackle that question for us?
Well, I can jump in. So what we always say is that, Lincoln Heights is a microcosm of the Black experience in America, right? When we talk about a community, a historic community that, had so many historic firsts in terms of being the first Black community with fire, police, and EMS, the first all-Black school district post-Reconstruction, being the second wealthiest Black community in the country in the 60s and 70s, right? So when we talk about and connecting it to that bigger picture of what's going on in America and Black America in particular, the conversation is that, when we talk about Black Wall Street, we're talking about places that were destroyed through white mob violence, right? Now, Lincoln Heights was damaged through racist activities that were largely on the economic plain, right? When you're talking about cutting out our industrial tax base, losing the land around that Black people lived all the way to Reading Road, right? The same land that GE Aviation sits on now, not getting any of those tax dollars, right? That's very much so indicative of like things that have happened to other Black communities and other Black spaces around the country. But the difference between Lincoln Heights and a lot of other places is, one, we've always had the ability to control zoning, so you couldn't remove us from our land. And then the other part of that is, we still have people who, and Reverend Lynch is one of them, we still have people who did not have to leave their Black community for anything, right? Not for groceries, not for any kind, like not for food, not for anything, right? All services, there was a business that serviced every need within the community, right? Even entertainment. So from that perspective, right, there's lessons to be learned from Lincoln Heights, and there's people who experienced it still, right? The conversation is largely centered around Tulsa, Oklahoma, and you're talking about Tulsa is 1921. 1921, we're over 100 years. You don't have too many people who experience going through that, right? Where Lincoln Heights, we still have people in their 50s who experienced a community that wrapped around, had all the supports, and had all the necessary businesses where the Black dollar circulated in the village of Lincoln Heights continuously, right?
And I think there's something to be said about that, right? When you think about today's world and wanting to be self-sufficient, because we've gone full circle. We went from, wanting to be integrated and wanting to be a part to, then we get the integration and we're able to have our own. And then now kind of going back around and now kind of wanting to be independent again, because there is an opportunity where we can be self-sufficient and still be able to utilize resources that are outside of our community, but be able to have a community that is held up by our own. I'm curious to hear what Pastor Lynch has to say about that, because he's one that has lived through it. So I'm always just hanging on the words to hear what you have.
Thank you, Carlton. You hit on what I had already jotted down. And I didn't know we were going this way, but I kind of figured we would. And if you started down on Shepherd Lane and go all the way to Perry at that time, that was as far as it went before we built the Wabash and the other little streets behind Perry. You had Lawson's gas station down on Shepherd Lane. You come on up the hill going north. Moxley's Groceries was on Simmons Avenue, 2 or 3 doors down from Mount Moriah Baptist Church, where I started everything. The Country Preacher, Bubba Combs, they right there on Stephens. People came from everywhere to get his food. When GE went to blew the whistle for lunchtime, they swarmed over to Lincoln Heights to eat some of Bubba's food. And the Country Preacher. You had Cox Coney's right across the street from Bubba's place. Then you had the Magic Moments right on down the street. I mean, y'all don't know nothing about that. Maybe I should shut up, but that was a moneymaker, a great place, and a gathering place for a whole lot of movers and shakers, and it lasted a long time. Then you had Man's Lounge, my school buddy, my graduate, my Richard Lewis, and so he's still living, still grew up together. Then right, if you leave in Stephen, you go to Bird Street, you had Watts Cab and taxi company right there on Bird. Then if you go up to Chamberlain, you had Mr. Smiley's store. And then Miss Emmeline's, when I was going to school, you can walk out on recess and you can go there and buy all the candy you want right there, because I went to South Woodlawn, as they called it then. And then you had Brown's Nursing Home, one of the preachers in Lincoln Heights. He built a nursing home across from one of the schools there. And then Douglas Walk, you go to Valley Homes at the top of the hill there. Lampkin store was right there at the end of Douglas Walk. And you had Mrs. Butler. Miss Butler's store was on Jackson Street, right there on the corner, and right across the street, Walker's Dry Cleaners was there. You didn't have to go nowhere to get your clothes done. You get it done right down there night. And then you had Jim Wynn, and I'm preaching for Jim Wynn this coming Sunday, but his granddaddy owned Wynn store and hotel and cab up down top of the hill in Jackson. And so then Mrs. Jenkins, if you come to Van Buren, the street that I was raised on, she had her store on Van Buren. And then one of the best and the most important entrepreneurs in Lincoln Heights history was Luther Lyle. That's L-Y-L-E. He was up there on Jackson. Not only did he have a store, but he expanded that store and it became a national supermarket at that time. Employed many people. And then right down the street where Mr. Lyle died, Mr. Neal started his store, a great grocery store. And then my first cousin, Ed Harding, I know Toyia knows all of the Hardings, was right, the Butch Harding and all of those people. Right down there on the corner of Matthew. He had a blacktopping business. He not only did he have a blacktopping business, he had a store right there for years. They lived upstairs in the store. And then he had liquor, all of the stuff going on. Oh, it was great. And then
it's funny, Pastor, because you going through all of these, and there was a different range of them when I got there. We had Otis down there in the lower sub. And you could go get all the liquor you wanted from Otis.
Yeah, right. Okay.
And then we had Walt's up there in the Valley Home, Walt's store.
First of all, you can't talk about Otis. We know we weren't supposed to be there.
I'm almost finished. And then you had barber and beauty shops on almost every street, and churches on every street. I mean, it was more churches than we needed, but thank God we had them, because everybody, when they got up on Sunday morning, was going to somebody's church.
Right.
And, and then you had a whole lot of people who built their houses, Reverend Samuels and Richard Lewis and all those people. They built Emily Village. Most folk don't know that Black folk built Emily Village. Richard Lewis and his company built Emily Village. I used to go over there and carry brick so that the bricklayers could put them up as a little boy making 50 cents an hour. And so with bouncing and all of those. So that's the kind of community that I grew up in. It was self-contained, and it was dealt with in terms of like people were knowing each other. People had come from the South, but most of what we talked about earlier, they were homeowners and they took care of their properties. We didn't have a whole lot of paved streets and blacktop streets, but I swept the yard with a broom and put a sign in the yard with dirt because I made some designs with my broom straw, keep off the grass. There was no grass, but it was in my mind that it was grass, which indicated that I was just as good and my house was just as good and pretty and beautiful as the manicured lanes and houses in what was then called Rose Lawn.
Right.
Women went over there in day cabs to work and come back, and they would bring some of the food that they had cooked for the white folk back to us. And so those are the climates that I grew up in. I just preached Carl Westmoreland's funeral. And she called. I just preached his funeral. And I'm preaching another Lincoln Heights guy's funeral in a few minutes. And so the deal is that, and I talked about at Carl's funeral, how could Carl do everything he did? Well, the reason was he was raised in Lincoln Heights. It's not that he had to go anywhere to get anything, because what was put in him in Lincoln Heights motivated him to do what he did across this city and across this nation. And so that's the beauty of Lincoln Heights.
And so, Reverend, when you think about all of those things being self-contained in Lincoln Heights, and we look at the world we have today, do you think that we could benefit from being self-sufficient and having communities where,
if we had the same mindset? But see what happened back in 1954, a man up in Washington said we were less than. We didn't have anything. We were insufficient. We didn't have what other folk had. It's the same stuff they're trying to whoop on you now with this replacement theory stuff that's going on, that motivated that young 18-year-old kid to shoot them people up there in Buffalo. They were trying to let us know that but we didn't know we were poor. I
Right.
never knew I was poor
Because
until
you had everything you need.
until they said I was poor.
Right.
I had my little buddies on. I had one pair of Converse. I mean, hey, we were cool. You know, I mean, we were cool, so we didn't have to run around talking about we didn't have and we didn't have. We had love, we had respect, we had everything we wanted, and then integration came and it swayed some people. Well, let's go somewhere. You heard me talk about before we started the show about Forest Park. I mean, Forest Park has nothing over Lincoln Heights. Those homes that those people had in Lincoln Heights, Forest Park looks like a shanty town compared to what there was over Van Buren and stuff. Reverend Fambro had his own trucking company, and he rode all over the United States making tons of dollars. And so I'm just saying we had everything we needed. But when you think that you're not who you're supposed to be because somebody else told you something, then you got a problem.
Right.
You will always be following them because you think that the man's ice is colder than your ice.
Right.
But it's not true. And so we were raised with self-respect. We were raised with we were somebody. James Brown did not have to tell us to be black and proud. We were already black and proud.
Because it was already in us.
The Isley Brothers was right there. We were all wrestling and playing together. Charles Spurling wrote most of James Brown's songs. We were all playing and rigging together right there on Shepherd Lane and in the Battle Home. And so we can count the folk that came out of Lincoln Heights that made great strides, knowing who they were, in spite of the fact that somebody was trying to tell them that they didn't have it.
That they weren't. Right. And so we say that history repeats itself. You know, I think that's a great point when you think about all the greats that have come out of Lincoln Heights. There are some things that we want to repeat, like we want to bottle it up of all the talent that came out of Lincoln Heights, whether it be entertainment or athleticism, whatever that might be. There are some things that in history we want to repeat, we want to bottle up and show again. And then there are some things in history that we never want to see come back. Can you guys talk to some of those things, the things that we would want to repeat out of history and those things that we may want to never see come back?
Go ahead, Carlton.
I think the very first thing, right, and I got some of this as well, being in Lincoln Heights Christian Academy inside of Lincoln Heights Missionary Baptist Church, right? I was in the first preschool class. And one of the things that they always taught us, and something that was just firmly instituted, it was just the love of your community, the love of you, the love you needed to display for yourself, right? In terms of producing excellence because you come from greatness, right? Like the history of Lincoln Heights and just the great people and it's not just our celebrities. It's about the engineers, it's about the doctors, it's about the lawyers, it's about the business people that were birthed out of Lincoln Heights school district, right? And put blood, sweat, and tears in terms of building a full community, right? As we talk about things that need to come back, you know, we have institutional knowledge that is not being shared with the rest of America. That's one of the things that we're, you know, pushing for. And the reason why we did the mural and the reason why we're now focused on still producing this documentary is to be able to tell that story and just let people know that there's still footprints left in the sand, right? In regards to, you know, they built it from scratch. It's not hard. Like it seems hard to fathom, right? And now we see these reports of people coming together and buying up acreage in rural Georgia or other areas around the country to produce a Black Wall Street, right? To create a Black Wall Street and develop that infrastructure. But even those people need to come back to a community like Lincoln Heights and ask questions. They need to sit down with our elders who have these stories, right? Like, it's a shame that they didn't get a chance to sit with Mr. Westmoreland, who could tell stories about what Guy T. Westmoreland did, right, to help establish and build the streets and advocate for state dollars to come to put in sewage and the things that really are foundational to
The
building
backbone.
community.
Mhm.
Those things are still, we still have those stories and they're resident with our elders. And I think it's important for us, if we talk about bringing something back, right, that respect level that we have for our elders and the appreciation for the institutional knowledge that they have.
Well,
Right.
sometimes it's very disrespectful too, in a sense, if you look at it on a grand scale, that all these stories, these kids know these stories because they heard their parents talk about these things and grandparents. They went to the funerals, they heard the eulogies, and so they know, but they just don't want to live that. They don't want to work as hard because why should I? I mean, why should I? Why should I? And I'm not trying kill you and Tom, Toyia, because of your youth, because you guys are on the right track, or else you wouldn't be trying to do this show as you do it. But the point is, you got so many that don't want to do what we did, because there's redemption in suffering, but they call that suffering, but it was good suffering. It's just like what's his name said, it's good trouble. It's all right to get in trouble if it's good trouble, if you're getting in trouble for something that's worth getting in trouble for. But we got folk running around here now killing each other. Lincoln Heights didn't have no crap like that. Every time I read about something where the white police got to come over there, we had our own police force. And the policeman would take his pen and give you the pen and you write your own ticket. Chief Gray lived right across the street from me, the chief of police. Even when Woodlawn had his first black daggone policeman, he caught me one day stealing down there on Riddle Road in the corner. And I put something in my pocket. I had a pea coat, a navy pea coat. I had cut a hole in the coat so that when I put it in the pocket, it went all the way down to my knee. And he caught me. He didn't take me to juvenile. He took me home. I wish he had have taken me to juvenile. When Mama got through with me, that's the last time I stole something. But that's what we didn't have juvenile records because we didn't have anything.
Right.
Either we went to college right out of high school or we went to the service. I went to the Marine Corps. I'm preaching a funeral this coming, and I told you, y'all probably even know the guy I'm preaching this funeral, and his brother became one of the first black, seaman in the whole United States Navy. Worldwide, right out of Lincoln Heights, Ohio.
Going.
So it's like
I'm preaching,
it's a reminder of that excellence.
I'm preaching Chuck's funeral.
Right.
Oh wow.
What do you say, Pastor?
Yeah, I'm preaching his funeral Saturday. Yeah. And I got another one down, but I don't want to put it all out on there. But I got another one down. I just coming in and great guy. The whole Lincoln Heights, Sister Addie Smith and all of those people. Understand? Her nephew is laying there getting ready to die. We all graduated from school together and went and played together, shot marbles together. And we did it fine.
Right.
But it was the generation that was coming along when you guys were coming along, got something that we don't want this, we want that. And sometimes you got to give up some in order to get some, and sometimes what you're getting ain't good as what you left.
Right.
I mean, if you'd have stayed right where you were and built it up collectively like the first founders did in 1946, if they were able, we're talking about them now. We're talking about them. We are their heritage. They are our heritage. The Bible says that your children are the heritage of the Lord and their parents. The reason that you and Toyia are doing what you're doing now is because they passed it down.
Right.
And you decided to listen. But there was some that got it passed down to decided not to listen. And so therefore, we're talking about a collective. Let us all get together and redo Lincoln Heights. I don't know if you ever heard of Lou Rawls or not, but he said, hey, Tobacco Road, I'm going to tear it down, build it up again. And that's what needs to be done.
Absolutely. So where do you guys see Lincoln Heights in the next 10 years? I know there's a lot of projects that are going on. I know viewers are interested to see how they can get involved in some of the rebuilding. Are there projects that are going on now, or projects that you see in the next 10 years that you can talk through?
So, one, I just want to invite everybody to check out the Heights movement. We have 4 pillars, do a lot of work. Those 4 pillars are beautification and social justice. So putting up murals and create just adding color back and life back to the community, as well as taking on the Cincinnati Police Department gun range. We are still fighting and advocating and meeting with elected officials bi-weekly to finally get that shut down after 75 years and get that moved out of the community. And then there's education and workforce development. We started a My Brother's Keeper chapter with the Obama Foundation to support Black and brown males. And then our focus is around juvenile justice from a policy initiative perspective. And then we also have, economic empowerment. We're launching an innovation center to be able to do programming and support kids and their development around skills and things that are going to lead to economic and social mobility. And then public health and wellness, right? Really taking a hard look at the impacts of the gun range and how do we as a community move forward in terms of a continuum of healing for the community, not pills, not additional special education or anything like that, but how do we find ways and implement ways to heal ourselves from
That's
the
the key.
intergenerational trauma.
That's the key. That gun range, they're going to put a marker over there for my brother because he drowned over there before it was even a gun range. It was a dump with a lake there. It was a dump and a lake. It was the garbage dump place where Reverend Williams, the Williamses, it was 2 people who had garbage businesses in Lincoln Heights, the Rainiers and the Williamses. And so that's where they dumped their stuff. So in April of 1957, after Easter that Monday, my brother and 2 or 3, 4, 5 of his buddies, it was so hot that day, they decided to go swimming in the lake where the gun range is now. And he went across, and on his way back, he went under and never did come back up. And so you probably, Paul Booth and all of them down there at the city manager's office, they want to put a marker. This is where Charles Lynch died, April the 22nd, 1957.
Wow.
So yeah, that kind of history, you see, is what folk need to deal with.
Right.
That was never always a gun range. That was not a gun range. And now everybody wants the gun range out because of the noise. You see.
Right. So it's always been kind of a nuisance in that area.
Well, no, they built that. Y'all probably too young to remember that. They built a brand new hotel there.
Really?
Right now, the hotel is gone. Right there, right across from the deaf school.
St. Rita's.
Yes. Yeah, that was a great hotel. That's where all that rifle range is, right behind there. Yeah, but that was a lake.
Wasn't that the Quality Inn? No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Long before the Quality Inn.
There.
Right. Well, you're a kid. I guess you wouldn't work there. But long before the Quality Inn was built, that's where those kids played and swam. We didn't have a swimming pool because every year they come by our house and get a penny from everybody. We don't have a pool, but we never got a pool. I learned how to swim in the Woodlawn Creek behind where I stole the stuff.
Oh, no.
Up on Little Road. That was the creek right back there.
You could swim in the creek?
Yes, ma'am, we could, but we weren't supposed to, okay?
Right. It doesn't seem safe.
We didn't have a swimming pool. You see what I'm saying? But we made it.
Right.
We made it without a pool. We used to have to get on a truck to go to Middletown to swim. They let us have one day up there. All white folk would get out of the pool. They would spray it and clean it and let the black folk come in one day a week.
Wow.
We rode in a truck, 15, 25 or 30 people in a truck. We were going up to St. Edmunds and Middletown, Ohio.
Wow. There's so many stories. If you just spend some time just hearing these stories,
Well, that's
because
all Carlton
they were
Collins
able to
doing.
do so
What do
much
you
with
think the
so little.
Underground Railroad is about? The
What'd you
Underground
say?
Railroad, the Underground Railroad, that's what we did when we put up the Underground Railroad. We
Telling
told
the
the
story.
stories. It's the
Hmm.
story.
Right.
It wasn't no real railroad. It's the story of how we made it, sweetie. And you go down
Absolutely.
there now and you look on the wall and you'll see Reverend Damon Lynch Jr., founder of the Underground Railroad. And
Yeah.
right downtown. You see, so these are the things we're talking about.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, we appreciate you telling us the story so that we can keep hope alive and keep fighting the good fight for those that didn't necessarily leave, but we just had to step out to get additional resources to take it to the next level.
Well, my hope is that you keep doing what you're doing and sandwich in some old guys every now and then. We ain't gonna just sandwich in and just because we love to hear from y'all and where you're going. Because at some point in time, you're gonna need some assistance and some kind of direction to say, well, how'd you guys do this? That's the best learning tool you can ever do. How were y'all able to do this in an economy that was never as good as it is now and as bad as it is? And then we can tell you how we did that.
Well, we're gonna have to make sure we set that up, Carlton. We need to bring them in and have them tell us how they made it over.
They got a good thing out there.
Any further words, Carlton, before we pay our sponsors?
Just that one, Lincoln Heights has now entered into a new phase. We are trending upward, right? It took a lot of work, a lot of sweat equity, and a lot of listening to our elders. But we've arrived, right? I think, after the murder of George Floyd, it gave us new life and a new opportunity to transform what the community looks like, what it can be, and opportunities to celebrate the past. And I'm just grateful to be in the position to serve. I'm happy I got a chance to sit at the feet of legends and incredible people like Reverend Lynch as a child, because it gave me so much reverence for the amount of work that they put in to build strong community. And
that's great. I appreciate that, and that's a good thing. But what really bothers me about some of our young people, even younger than you, if you look at Lincoln Heights, the first church was Mount Moriah. Every other church in Lincoln Heights came out of Mount Moriah. And now Mount Moriah is nowhere. I mean, Lincoln Heights Baptist doesn't have a pastor. Mount Zion just called a pastor. I mean, there's no continuity, no transition. You see, I got my guy and I've schooled him and said, and then I said, now it's my time, I'm gone, you come on now. It wasn't no split, it was no separation. The congregation is intact. But Lincoln Heights, gone. Ebenezer's gone. St. Simon is not what it was. I mean, we had preachers, Moss and Jones and P.W. Smith. That's why we were Mangum, even though he made the mistake he made, it wasn't intentional. It wasn't intentional that the Valley View, which should have been Lincoln Heights, there was no such thing as an Evendale. Okay? If you go up there now at Landmark, you'll see a marker up there where we put a marker right there. You understand? Before you get ready to go to Donald Jordan's home when he was alive, put a marker there about Sharonville. That was called something else. All of that was Lincoln Heights' stuff. And that's what Brother Westmoreland and Aunt Shivers and all of those guys fought for, Aaron Love. And so that was passed on down to us. And we said, hey, we take the baton and you run with it.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to make sure that we have you as the baton passer, Pastor Lynch. We want to make sure you pass the baton so that we can pick it up and run with it. With that, we're going to thank you guys for today, and we're going to go ahead and pay our sponsors. Thank you again.
Well, God bless you.
Don't forget about Lincoln Heights.
Good to see you, Carlton. God bless.
Sure. Have a good
Toyia.
one, man.
You still got the prettiest daughter in town.
Oh, thank you.
Today's episode of The Plug is sponsored by the following companies. At the platinum level, we have the BBB. The Better Business Bureau works to be a leader in advancing marketplace trust through ethics. This is done by setting a standard of marketplace trust, encouraging and supporting best practices by engaging with consumers and businesses, celebrating marketplace role models, addressing substandard marketplace behaviors, and creating a community of trustworthy businesses and charities. Our silver level sponsors are the Heights Movement, a 501c3 nonprofit organization which is committed to the development of youth, young adults, and residents of the historic village of Lincoln Heights through capacity building, education, innovation, and leadership with community, corporate, and philanthropic partners. For more information, go to theheightsmovement.org or The Heights Movement on Facebook or Instagram. And last but certainly not least, Donnie Young, an ADT authorized provider, supplying you with all of your security needs for your home, business, and beyond. For more details, call Donnie at 513-623-0679. The Plug thanks all of our sponsors for helping us keep you connected.